I'm Brandon Isle with BYU-Idaho Radio, and joining me in the studio is Rex Butterfield. He's a religion professor here at BYU-Idaho, and he gets to help put on the Passover meal, the Seder that BYU-Idaho is doing on April 1st. Rex, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
This is a fun tradition that BYU-Idaho started a few years ago. Is that right?
This will be year number 3.
Yeah. What kind of brought this on? Why are we doing this?
The leaders of the church for a few years have been asking us to elevate Easter and highlight it, make it a season instead of just a day. And this is in response to that. The Savior's Last Supper was actually a Passover meal. So to commemorate that, and to get the run up to Easter, we have started doing the Passover meal. It's a Passover experience. It's not exactly a Passover meal. There are a lot of similarities, but this is not a Jewish Seder. It's pointed at members of the church, Christians, and LDS Christians in particular.
Yeah. So this won't be the exact, it's very exact what they do in the Seder.
Yeah,
right?
The Haggadah, it's the reciting. So there's not just one. There's lots of them. There's lots of different viewpoints for the Haggadah, but this one is definitely Christian and definitely LDS.
Yeah. So when you say that, you're talking about a lot of symbolism, and
we try to preserve that.
The meaning is.
Yeah, we try to preserve the symbolism. A lot of it comes right from Exodus chapter 12, when the first Passover happened. They've added some things since then, even in Jewish circles. For example, we use grape juice in ours.
No wine. I know there's
No wine.
4 glasses of wine, right?
The 4 glasses is actually post-Jesus even.
Yeah.
So Exodus 12, there's no wine at all. Somewhere between Exodus and the Savior, they started using wine, but then the 4 glasses of wine happens after that. Can we call it grape juice? Is that okay?
Yeah, totally. For our purposes, we're using grape juice.
Yeah, we are. So that's post, but it's during that Last Supper that the Savior used one of those to institute the sacrament. So there is breaking of bread. It's unleavened bread, and we'll talk about the symbolism that night, but that's when the Savior instituted the sacrament.
Yeah. Maybe we need to back up a little bit. I mean, we talk about Passover a lot and kind of skip what that really is. Can you kind of explain the Passover and the meaning behind it and for Jewish people?
Oh, that's a great thing to start with. We should have done that earlier. It's Exodus. The children of Israel had been in Egypt for years, or centuries actually, and it was time for them to come out. So the Lord calls Moses, and we're pretty familiar with the plagues, and there's a recounting of that during the Passover Seder, because that last one, the death of the firstborn, is when the angel came and passed over the children of Israel. The lamb's blood on the doorposts and lintels, the lamb's blood is what protected them. And that symbolism for Latter-day Saints is pretty clear. So we'll talk about that. But that's what it was, the blood of the lamb that got them, the blood of the firstborn that got them out of Egypt, and the blood of the lamb that protected the children of Israel. So the destroying angel passed over them.
It's so amazing to think about that, how that happened so long ago, and centuries later, it's still being observed as an important part of their calendar year and celebrations.
Well, it does tell us in Exodus that it's supposed to be a perpetual thing. And as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we don't celebrate it the same way, but the elements of the sacrament fulfill that commandment that we partake of weekly. And it's not insignificant that it was a Passover meal where the Savior did institute the sacrament.
Yeah. And I don't think we necessarily think about that part of it very often. Maybe sometimes, but that was the point. That's why he gathered his disciples that night and is partaking of this meal.
Exactly.
So food is a big part of this. Can you talk about some of the food and what it represents?
The university is very, very generous in how they help us with this. So there is going to be a meal afterwards. But for the Passover part itself, there are certain symbolic foods that we partake of. Bitter herbs is the fun one. Lamb is one of them. Charoset, we'll explain it that night. It's a mixture that is kind of sweet. Apples and part of the grape juice, things like that. Unleavened bread, that's a symbolic thing. But yeah, there's some of the symbolic foods. But then afterwards, the the university is very kind in helping. They're subsidizing the meal afterwards.
Right. There's a cost
Yeah,
to go to this meal, but yeah, $10 for a student, probably not paying for the whole meal.
not even close. They're when prophets ask things, we try to answer, and the university really does put their money quite literally where their mouth is.
Yeah.
So we're grateful for that.
Will you talk about some of the symbolism, especially the unleavened bread? I know is a big part of it, and people I think recognize that more than maybe the bitter herbs and things.
Yeah. One of the first things that we do in the Passover, in the Seder, is prior to the Passover, Jewish families do a lot of cleaning, because sometimes the spores in the air from the dust can actually leaven the bread. So they want to make sure everything is spotless. And so, as one of the last parts of the cleaning, the family will hide a bag that has some leavened bread in it. And the children search for it. And with great pomp and circumstance, they'll remove it from the house. It's a really fun, happy thing that they do. Um, for the Passover itself in Exodus, they didn't have time for the bread to leaven. They're supposed to eat with their sandals on, standing, ready to go. So the bread didn't have time to leaven. And the leaven can also, crackers do not get moldy as fast as bread. It's the leaven that causes the corruption to happen. So there's some symbolism there too, that we're supposed to be clean.
Yeah. As students are learning these different symbols and eating this food in sequence, uh, do you see a change come over them? Like what is the feeling like in that room?
I don't want to give away too much, but the bitter herbs, um, the people that come, they're going to get. We use horseradish
Hmm.
because it works, and they're going to get the instruction to be brave and to make it hurt. We want it to be painful when they put that. The bitterness of sin for the Jews, it was the bitterness of bondage. But right after that, we have them partake of the lamb, and it's striking what happens when you've eaten the horseradish and it cleans out your sinuses and
Yeah, it does.
it burns. But you partake of the lamb and that burning just goes away. It's a remarkable thing. And if we think about what the Savior does for us, he removes the bitterness of sin, and it's immediate. I mean, they are longing to get that lamb in their mouth because it takes away that burning.
Yeah.
And the symbolism there is really powerful. And so that's when they get, oh, wow, he can do that. And it's a sweet moment. Usually, we're hoping it's going to be a sweet moment this time too.
Well, and the point of the religion department putting this on is you're able to kind of walk them through this
Hmm.
and help them understand the experience in a more meaningful way. Tell me about your preparation for that. I know you're going to be one of the main speakers this year. Is that right?
Yeah. Usually, when Jews do it, it's a family setting. So we're going to try to replicate that family setting with my wife's going to be helping. We've got some students who are going to be readers for us. The the youngest child asks some specific questions. So it'll be more of a family feel, not a stand up and kind of deliver thing. But yeah, I get to be the dad. And the mom has some important pieces too. Early on, she'll light some candles that reminds us that the light of the world came from a woman, from Mary. And yeah, is that responsive?
Yeah, it's so neat that you can put it in a family setting, and there will be hundreds of people
Yeah, it's a
there.
very large family.
Yeah. Uh, Now it's not just the food; it's other things are symbolic. You'll have plates there. Is that
Hmm.
right? Tell me about those special plates.
It just has a slot for each of the symbolic foods. There's a spot for a lamb bone. We're not really going to use lamb bones. We're probably not going to really use bones anyway. There'll be one just to show. There's an egg that has some symbolism. There's some salt water, the bitterness of the tears. There's some green herbs, but the plate has a slot for each of those. And
And
the
and does each student or each participant have one of those in front of them?
probably just one per table.
Hmm.
The tables will be in the crossroads this time, so the tables are fairly small, so people will be able to see what's on the table pretty well.
Yeah. And what is your favorite part of this whole experience?
Mm. I like how it. I like how it points towards the Savior, and um, each Seder ends the same way worldwide, and it's with a joyous shout of "Next year in Jerusalem." And we're not going to end there this time. We're going to keep them for about 5, maybe 10 more minutes, because that was not the end of the Savior's night. Next year, well, they were in Jerusalem, and after the Last Supper was finished, he, with some of his disciples, went into the Garden of Gethsemane. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I hope that that works well. Um, it's not. We do love and appreciate our Jewish friends and neighbors. This is not just a cultural celebration. This is a pointing towards Easter and what the Savior did for all of us. So it's something that I've not done before with a Seder, but I'm hopeful that it will be a nice way to wrap things up and to remember that this does look forward to Easter. This was the hard night. This was when the Savior went into Gethsemane. The next day is going to be a hard day. That's Good Friday. We'll be doing it on a Wednesday, but the next day for the Savior was when he was crucified. But we're looking forward to Sunday. Sunday's coming.
What a great message for the students to understand, leading right into that weekend where we do celebrate Easter. And then we'll have general conference from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And just having that on our minds, I think this certainly helps fulfill the wish from church leaders to do more about Easter.
We hope so. We really want it to be a good remembrance of what the Savior did for all of us. That's really the goal. Will it be fun to have a meal together? Yeah. Will it be nice to do some of the joyous, happy things that happen during Passover? Yeah, that'll all be fun and good. We need to remember what it's really about, too.
Yeah. When students have experienced this, what kind of feedback do you get from them?
They seem to like it. They seem to come away with a greater appreciation for our Jewish friends and neighbors, but also with a greater appreciation for the Savior. And if we can do those two things at the same time, then great.
How do you prepare yourself for this experience?
Ooh, that's a good question. I try to be familiar with the scriptures mostly, so that we can reference those, and obviously you be prayerful and ask for the blessings of heaven, so that people can have their hearts and minds turned towards the one who can actually help them, towards the Savior. Yeah, that's probably it. And try to not be nervous. There's going to be a lot of people there.
Yeah. Does the religion department take turns of who's presenting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a stressful thing. The last couple of years, it's been Brother Castillo, and then he was just too busy to do it this year. He did a really nice job, so they passed the torch on to me, and it'll be a little bit different. I can't do what Brother Castillo did. He could play the guitar and sing, so we're going to have YouTube help us with that. Ari the lion actually will help us to sing Dayenu, which means it is sufficient. It's part of the Passover Seder. If God had only brought us out of Egypt, that would have been sufficient. But he brought us out of Egypt, and he gave us the scriptures, and he gave us the Sabbath, and he brought us through the Red Sea, and any one of those things would have been sufficient, Dayenu. But yeah, it'll be a little bit different flavor just because different personalities, but there will still be the main elements that will be the same.
Yeah. As you've been preparing for this, has there been something particularly poignant that you've maybe learned or relearned in your study?
It's what happens after that's the big thing for me, and that's why we're going to spend some time on it. The path that the Savior took, we don't know for sure which way he went, but it seems likely that he did not walk through Jerusalem, because where the upper room is to get to the Garden of Gethsemane, he would have if he'd have gone through the city, then he would have had to walk right past Caiaphas' palace, and that's where he's going to end up on trial. The illegal trial is going to happen there. There's a stairway that's right there. It's still there to this day. that it's virtually 100% certain that Jesus walked on those stairs because everybody in Jerusalem walked on those stairs. That's the direction he would have gone. I kind of think he did not walk through the city. I think he went around, which means, and Passover is always on a full moon. Easter is the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon. So it is interesting that the day that we have it, Wednesday, April 1st, is the first day of the actual Passover. And it is a full moon that night. And the path that the Savior seems to have likely taken would have taken him to the Kidron Valley. And as he would have come around a corner, there would have been a point where, to this day, on the Mount of Olives, there's a cemetery there. And during the Savior's time period, everybody's read about whited sepulchres. They painted them white. They whitewashed them so that people wouldn't come in contact with bones, with dead bodies, because then they'd become ritually unclean. So at some point, unless it was cloudy, and we don't know, there's no way we can know for sure, but none of the accounts talk about rain or anything. So I'm just going to assume that it was a clear night. And at some point, the Savior would have come around a corner and seen those whited sepulchres gleaming in the full moonlight. And I've just wondered what he thought, knowing where he was going, knowing what he was going to experience over the next number of hours, knowing that it wasn't too long that he'd be joining that group of people. It's more questions than answers, but I just wonder what he might have experienced when he saw that, what feelings he might have had knowing what was about to happen to him. That's what's been on my mind.
Yeah, thank you. Do you hope that students feel that? Are you going to give them time for reflection and maybe to ask questions?
I hope so. We do have a limited time there. It has to be done within a couple hours. But I hope that they'll take some things home and actually ponder them as it comes up to that time period where we remember leading up to Good Friday what he did and where he spent that Thursday night and what he spent that Thursday night doing. So there might be a little time during it, but more importantly, I hope there's some time afterwards where they spend some time thinking about that.
Yeah. If there's one thing that they remember from this experience, what do you hope that is?
That Jesus really is the Son of God, that he really is our Savior, that he really did suffer and bleed and die, and perhaps at least as important as that, he really was resurrected. That tomb really was empty on Easter Sunday. He came out of that tomb as a glorified, resurrected being. And if we can testify of that, then we did our job.
Well, Rex, thank you so much for spending some time with me talking about this Passover meal.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.